Honor of speaking to U.S. Marine commanders from all over the world. I titled my presentation, The Dawn of AI and the Future of Communication and Humankind. Now, a big chunk of the discussion, though, was on the massive wealth and optimism divide, particularly between young and old Americans. 40 is the new 20. And essentially that means that's where all the action is right now. That's where all the money is right now. That's the key demographic if you want to sell something or buy a house. Anything other than that is being left out. And what really occurred to me is, I don't know if we have any Prince fans here or if you would admit it amongst your friends, but I'm just joking. But Prince, the song 1999, right? You think about this, right? Oops, out of time, party's over. Maybe it really was over in 1999. We didn't have a nuclear disaster, but something changed. If 40 is the new 20, and we've been sort of stalled since the late 90s, something has gone wrong. Joining me now, the Federalist Elections correspondent, Brianna Lyman. Brianna, let's start with this sort of the wealth divide, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's absolutely huge. Yeah. And all of the money has accrued, we just had to talk about this a moment ago, to 10% of the folks out there owning 89% of the stocks. Mm-hmm. The top 20% of older folks own 40% of the houses. And it's creating this serious divide in this country. And it feels like, young people are either going to, living for now, FOMO, what the heck, I can never own a house, might as well go party tonight. Some are waiting for an inheritance, and then some are saying, I got to turn to socialism. So none of those are necessarily good choices.
No, and I think there's a lot of problems right now, right? It's like the boomers and Gen Z are kind of pit against each other. And I think what people have to realize is the boomers worked hard for their house, for their wealth, and no one should take that away from them. And I think it would best be to focus our ire on what Washington has done to prevent my generation from really acquiring wealth. So think high rates, think regulations that are so burdensome, think a housing market crisis and their policies towards that. That's what's really kind of preventing us from living out our American dream.
All right. I know boomers worked hard for their houses, but every time I go on social media, there's a meme that reflects this. How much did you pay for your first house, right? Less than $50,000. You've seen them, right? You got the old folks and they're partying, they're drinking coffee and they're laughing, right? They paid $50,000 and they're selling for $3 million. No one in your generation can pay that, And here's an interesting article. This came out this week. This came out last week, right? 61% of boomers never plan to sell their homes. Mm-hmm. 76% say they are tired of being blamed for the housing crisis. Maybe this gets back to your point, though. Maybe it's not their fault.
Right, and I am totally aware of the plight of my generation in terms of buying a home. But you have to think of the housing bubble, right? The crash. There was a lot of housing development going on. We kind of just stopped it. So there is a housing shortage that we're facing. Think of all the mass migration we've seen. That does, decrease the amount of housing available. It does drive up prices. There are a lot of factors at play here. I don't know if the boomers should deserve all of the blame or even any of it, but I think there's other ways we can help my generation.
I want to know how this is playing into the birth rate crisis, right? That it's really awful. There's an article that says it's not as bad as you've heard. It's actually worse. Right. Yeah. And I guess if you don't see a future, you don't have a family. We've talked about this before, but it feels more acute every day. Oh,
it is. Pat Buchanan warned in his 2002 book, Death of the West. He said, a nation that cannot reproduce itself is a nation that will not survive. We are at suicidal civilization levels. In the United States, 1.6 children per woman. That is not enough to replenish. And the problem with that is, at the end of the day, when you have no people having children and the birth rate goes down, you're going to have a smaller labor force. You can always import labor, but you know what you can import, Charles? A culture, a heritage, a set of values. That's dangerous.
We have a culture, I thought, and a set of values. We have an ethos as a nation, and yet I don't think people believe it anymore, right? This Mamdani race is evidence of that. And there's so many polls out there. The Cato Institute, Emerson, Marist, just one after another showing that young folks your age are now embracing socialism. Now, they're split along party lines, but for people who are saying, okay, I no longer believe in the ethos of this nation, how can you reach them?
Well, I think a lot of people who are shifting towards socialism, it's not because they have these genuine Marxist convictions. They are identifying crony corporatism as capitalism, right? They see big corporate bailouts. They see big tech oligarchs, kind of compiling together, and they say that must be a product of capitalism, not realizing.
And it doesn't help, right? To your point, like someone who got a big bailout. And listen, I'm not trying to pick on Jamie Dimon, but his firm got billions of dollars after they blew it, right?
Yes.
And then he's telling people not to vote for Mamdani. A young person, 20 years old, is like, all I know, Champ, is you took a lot of cash.
Exactly. And that taking a lot of cash is a direct result of too much big government. Socialism is actually more of that. And unfortunately, I think a lot of younger people lack the education to make that distinction.
Well, let's hope they don't all have to learn the hard way. I want to shift gears, though, on hypocrisy, the other divide that is hurting us, right? And it's political. The reaction to the Jimmy Kimmel suspension, just your thoughts on it. There seems to be people who are more offended at this than the way Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
Yeah, this seems to be getting a lot more coverage than what happened to Charlie Kirk. And I think that the left is being absolutely hypocritical because you know what? Where were they talking about free speech when Donald Trump was deplatformed from social media? Where were they when Rand Paul was censored from YouTube? Where were they when the Federalist was being targeted by the Biden administration, which was colluding and coercing social media companies to silence conservatives? They didn't care then. They only care now because they're trying to exploit it to target Donald Trump.
How do we navigate this freedom of speech that we cherish so much?
Well, I don't even necessarily think this is a freedom of speech case. ABC is an independent company.
But even not just ABC, I'm just saying that it's come up, right? Social media, some people want to shut it down, those kind of things. It has brought the freedom of speech debate back in the forefront.
Yeah, I mean, freedom of speech is the core of our republic. We have to have freedom of speech, but you can't have one side, aka Democrats, saying for years it's okay to suppress freedom of speech,
right,
and then suddenly when someone fires someone or puts them on hold for something, say, oh my God, freedom of speech is so important. You have to be consistent.
I can't let you go without asking this. This is really maybe the scariest thing. More Americans across the political spectrum say political violence is never justified, although more liberal Americans are likely to disagree. 25% disagree. They think that you can have, this kind of violence out there.
Yeah, I think it's frightening. And people are a product of their environment. Think of the environment we've lived in for the past 5 years. They have dehumanized Republicans, Donald Trump, and then they try to desensitize Americans to these people. Joe Biden said that Donald Trump needs to be in a bullseye. We heard after his second assassination attempt, he shouldn't be the target, but he said some bad things. There's always that level of justification. What message